Good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Bibelos. I'm a GMAT tutor at gmatninja.com, resident verbal expert here at GMAT Club. And even though I'm the resident verbal expert, we're going to make you suffer through some quant again today. And this is video number 6 in our second series of live YouTube videos. And this series is on developing a winning GMAT mindset. So I'm not going to pretend that we're going to get through absolutely everything there is to know about word translations in an hour. That's totally impossible. But what I want is to illustrate a few principles, try to get your mind right a little bit, try to get you thinking about things that are really key about word translations, that are ideas that are going to cut across all sorts of different word problems. So some of these will be really basic for some of you guys. Some of you will find some of these examples tough. I'm going to try to aim at the middle and try to aim for things that are just going to get you thinking in the right kind of ways for word translations. And those will be things that you can apply on harder and harder questions. Friendly reminder, these videos are live. So if you are not watching this live, apologies for any errors. If you are watching this live, once again, I'm going to keep haranguing you guys. Please, please, please don't be shy. When we put a question up, let us know your answers as soon as you have them. That really helps us make this better. I'm accustomed to one-on-one tutoring. I'm constantly getting feedback. I see what my students are struggling with. Here I'm just talking to a camera. So it really, really helps me if I can see what you guys are picking. If I'm seeing a lot of the same kind of error from a lot of people, that helps us a ton. So please don't be shy, especially if you're going against the grain. A whole bunch of people are picking D. You think it's A. Please let us know. The live chats are not saved anywhere. They disappear when the broadcast is over. So no reason for embarrassment. All right, let's jump right in, give you a couple warm-up questions. We'll pop 2 up. I'll give you no more than 4 minutes. And if we're getting a lot of answers within 3 minutes, we'll end it early. Neither of these are terribly tough. So if you put those up, please, Shovik, and we'll give you guys 3 or 4 minutes to take a shot at these. Okay, looks like we're getting pretty good consensus on these, so let's go ahead and jump back in. Let's start with the first one first. So number of rooms at Hotel G is 10 less than twice the number of rooms at Hotel H. So these are 2 nice straight translation questions. Not a whole lot going on here. These are going to get harder on the next batch. G is 10 less than twice H. Okay, so G equals 10 less than twice H, so 2H minus 10, easy enough. Total rooms is 425. G plus H equals 425. Easy enough from here, a little bit of substitution, two equations, two variables. I'll just punch this guy back in here. Why did that turn into x? 2h plus 10 plus h equals 425. Easy enough. 3h equals 425 plus 10. And 3h equals 435, if I'm doing this right. We end up with whatever 435 divided by 3 is. And easy enough. I believe we get 145 there. And question's actually asking us for the number of rooms in G, so 435 minus the 145, and that's it. Simple enough, nice straight translation. Same thing here. Looks a little bit less intuitive. 2x is equal to m% of y. It's one of those things where you can't really intuit anything there and kind of go, oh, this answer would make sense, this answer wouldn't make sense. But you can just go word for word. 2x equals m% means over 100. The word of always means multiply. Multiply that by y. Easy enough. Now, question's not asking us for x, it's not asking us for y, it's asking us for the ratio. So that question is asking us what's x over y. So easy enough here, divide both sides by y, divide both sides by 2, x equals m over 200. And that's it, x over y, I'm sorry, equals m over 200. Okay, so nice straight things. Percent sign always means over 100. Of always means multiply. You're being asked for a ratio, it's always a fraction. Very simple building blocks here of word translations. What's my point? If the GMAT is going to gift you a situation where all you have to do is straight translate a word problem into algebra, take that opportunity every single time. Don't get cute. Don't start picking numbers. Don't start back solving. All this stuff we love to tell you in the test prep industry that oh, avoid the algebra, pick numbers. Why? No point in doing that. If they give you the opportunity just to do a nice clean translation, by all means, take it. Next one's just a tiny notch harder. I see a different set of errors on this. Still a translation question, but there's an opportunity to make a mistake or two. I'll give you about 2 minutes on this one. Okay, it looks like we're getting plenty of consensus on this one. Okay, so there's lots of, it sounds like the live group isn't struggling. I'm going to talk about a few things that I tend to see on this one. A lot of people do kind of goofy stuff on ratios, and they'll start kind of saying, I don't know, like, let me see if I can just kind of massage these numbers and avoid the algebra. And I'll see people do stuff like this. Well, hey, it's a ratio. We can just scale it up, and it's 4 to 10 to 16. And well, is that going to be 48 more cherries than grapes? No, that's only 12. Well, let me double that again. And you can see how this is magnificently inefficient. Again, I don't know that anybody in our live group is doing this. Maybe none of you not watching it live are doing this. This is the type of mistake I see all the time. I see complicated systems of equations where we end up with 3 variables here sometimes. Pain in the butt, no fun. What is a ratio really? In a sense, I just illustrated it by doing it kind of that slow way that, hey, it's just like there's one variable here. It's almost like you have these all these little mini packages of salad, and every one has 2 grapes and 5 raspberries and 8 cherries. Only question is, how many of those do you have? You scale them all up together, right? X is some positive integer here. So great. Once you kind of get that idea of that X, that multiplier, you're multiplying everything in the ratio by some constant, some positive integer, then it's not so bad. 2x is your actual number of grapes. We just don't know what X is. 5x is your actual number of raspberries. We just don't know what X is yet. 8x is your actual number of cherries. We just don't know what X is yet. Great. And now we can turn this into a nice, pretty little equation. 48 more cherries than grapes. Okay, so here's another mistake I tend to see. Cherries are 8x. 48 more than 8x will give me the number of grapes. And this is the other mistake I see all the time. What's the problem here? Well, it doesn't make any logical sense. You got the big guy, so there's more cherries here, right? You got the big one, you add something to it, you get the small one. Not just on ratio questions, but all over the place. What's the most common careless error I see on algebra questions, word translation questions, this kind of thing? Whenever you get the chance to say, wait a minute, does this make sense? Very, very simple thing you can do here and just go, does it really make sense to add something to the big one to get the little one? Of course it doesn't. It's got to be the other way around. 2x plus 48 is going to give me 8x. Easy enough from there. 48 equals 6x, x equals 8. And what we want is the raspberries. That's equal to 5x. And that's just 40. Pretty much everybody in the live group got it right. But again, don't run away from the algebra if the algebra is going to be easy, number one. Number two, any opportunity you get to just say, hey, does this make sense? I'm adding something to the big one to get the small one. Take those opportunities. Take that 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds to double check. Absolutely pays off. And for those of you who saw the first couple of videos in this sequence, you know that really careless errors, if you miss stuff that's easy for you, the wheels come off. Always spend that little bit of time making sure you don't make that particular error. Okay, let's come back to percents. I'll give you 2 questions again in this batch. And again, we're just upping it just a small notch. Got a couple little Trojan horses in here, different ways to make errors. Good, and give you about 4 minutes on these. And if we start getting responses quickly, we'll jump in after 3. All right, this is great. We're finally starting to get a little bit of disagreement with the live group. Makes me happy, means we're finally challenging you a little bit. Let's start with the second one, actually. Our guys, Bruce, Chuck, and Darlene. Let me show you what most people's instinct is here. So Bruce earned 200% more than Chuck, easy enough. B equals 2C. Bruce earned 150% more than Darlene. B equals 1.5D. Well, easy enough. We know D equals 300. We can start punching that in. So B equals 1.5 times 300. I think that's going to give us 450. That means Chuck over here is going to be 225. Add these three numbers up. I believe you get B there. That's not right. Why? 200% more. 150% more. What I just did here is 200% of and 150% of. Really common, I want to be careful. I don't want to call this a trap exactly on the GMAT. It's not like the GMAT's trying to be sneaky and tricky and devious. Like that's not really a good way to think about the test. But it's the kind of thing that they'll put in there because it's the kind of percentages you see all the time in real life. Oh, hey, the US stock market is up 300% since 2008. Okay, does that mean it tripled or does that mean it quadrupled? If I said that the current value of the stock market is 300% more than it was 10 years ago, that means it actually quadrupled. It's 1 plus that percent change. So this is actually wrong. And my point here is to avoid those careless errors. Again, you're trying to avoid those errors on things that you can handle mathematically. You make those errors, the wheels are going to come off really, really quickly on your test. Pay really close attention. You see a percent over 100, watch your back. Make sure it actually makes sense. 200% more than Chuck, that's not going to be 2C, that's going to be 3C. 150% more than Darlene, you're not multiplying by 1.5, now you're multiplying by 2.5. And now all of this ends up being different. 2.5 times 300, I think you get 750 there. If Bruce is equal to 3C, that means C is now 250, and you add these three up, 300, 750, 250, you get a total of 1300. Answer here should be D, not B. Okay, so that's one common trap I see or see people walking themselves into. Let's talk about this guy over here. So once again, there's an element of this question that's straight translation in a sense. So we've got some pig. The pig ate 27 pounds of corn, 90,000 pounds in the silo. Great. So basically, we're just being asked 27 is what percent of 90,000? Okay, so we can take that, turn that into a straight little equation, no problem at all. 27 is an equal sign what? There's a variable, call that x. Percent over 100 of 90,000. Great. Now, this isn't the only way to set up a percent question. I think this is the most methodical, the most fundamentally foolproof, unless you make a mistake down the road. And I'll illustrate a couple of those mistakes here. Okay, so we can start canceling. A couple zeros cancel out. Always when you're canceling zeros like this, just triple check your work. Doesn't take you any time at all. Really easy to just misread that, make a little mistake. So what do we get? We get x equals 27 over 900. We can doctor that a little bit. Let's divide top and bottom by 9. We get 3 over 100. That looks to me like 3%. I'm not sure if anybody picked A. This is wrong. Why? We actually already baked in the percent right there. Actually, two ways to think about it. One is that we already baked in the percent right there. Once we put that 100 down there, X is your answer. That's it. Slap a percent sign on this, and you're done. The actual answer is not 3%. It's 3/100ths of a percent. No reconverting necessary, and that's actually kind of the whole point of setting it up this way. You don't need to reconvert anything. Once you get this, you're absolutely done. Solve it for X, slap a percent sign on it. Congratulations, you win. 3 over 100% or 3/100ths percent, that's something you would write as 0.03%. That's it. There's your answer. Answer here is C. It's actually interesting. I think we had some people pick E in the live group. That tells me that you're converting this again. You're redividing this by 100 one more time, and that doesn't work either. This is it. If you're going to set it up this way, trust your X, trust your algebra. Again, if you have the opportunity to translate, trust what you've got. Now, one other thing here, and this is, again, all of this is about defend your downside. Don't make careless errors. If you know how to get something right, make sure you get it right, or else you can learn all the advanced math you want to. It's not going to make any difference at all. The other thing you should catch here, if you had picked, for example, 3%, you should be able to go, wait a minute, does that answer actually make sense? They've been nice enough to give us numbers on this question. 1% of 90,000 pounds of corn in the silo. What's 1% of that? Well, 900. There is no way that pig ate 3%. That's not even in the right ballpark. The pig only ate 27 pounds. 1% would be 900 pounds. This can't possibly be right. Similar idea, a little bit harder to see, but if you'd picked E here and you had, how many zeros was this? I think it's 3 zeros leading. That should also seem a little bit off to you. 1% would be 900. 0.1% would be 90. 0.00, or I guess 1/100th of a percent would be 9. There's no way that this is right. There's just too many zeros there between your decimal and the 3. So whenever you get the chance just to sniff test and go, hey, I'm in the right ballpark, take that chance. Spend that 15 seconds. Can't say it enough. Whenever you get the opportunity to see if your answer is right without investing a ton, again, 10 seconds to say, am I in the right ballpark? Not at all here. Okay. Next one we're going to do is an age question. There's a little bit of mythology around these. I think there are probably too many of these floating around in the test prep world. You don't see a ton of age problems exactly on the test, but they do kind of illustrate something really important in word translations. And this is kind of what we're going to spend the rest of our time on, is the idea that this illustrates. Give you guys a couple of minutes. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this. Harshal, make sure you check your answer. That was too fast, buddy. And we'll give you about 30 more seconds. Don't be shy, guys, if you have an answer, even if you're going against the grain. Especially if you're going against the grain. Let us know what you got. And I'm not sure if the quietness in the live group is that you're paralyzed and can't get to an answer, or if you're just being shy. So please don't be shy. Makes us happy to see some answers. I might pick on you a little bit, but it's good natured. We love you all. Okay, looks like we're getting a very quiet trickle of C um, which is interesting. And I've got a pick for E, but mostly pretty quiet. I don't know if that's just because you guys are paralyzed and it's not quite getting anywhere. Now, the way I set up this particular, there's different ways we can write age questions to cause different problems. The problems are all the same, ultimately, the root of it. I'll talk about that more in a minute. In this one, if you're struggling with this, I think what's going to happen to you is you might just kind of get a couple of equations that just don't make sense. If you're being too mechanical with the translation, here's what's going to happen. 1984, Johnny is 5 times older than Charlie. J equals 5C. Awesome. 2005, Johnny, twice as old as Charlie. J equals 2C. Wait a minute. You try to solve this, what do you get? You get A, I guess. You get 0. You can't do anything with it. If J is equal to 5C and J is equal to 2C, then literally what you're implying here is that 5C equals 2C. In other words, somehow when Charlie was 5 times older than he was in 1984, he was also twice as old as he was. I'm not even sure what I just said, but it doesn't make any sense. I guess you get an answer of 0 there. This is the most common mistake, is too much mechanicalness in the translation without thinking about what do my variables actually mean. That's the big key. What do my variables mean? So what I always want you to do on these questions, and this is going to be true of really any word translation that's anything above about a 400 or 500 level, sometimes you got to think about, hey, what do my variables really mean? What are they? In the example I just wrote up, or the bad version of this question, I'll write these back up real quick. What did J mean? J meant 2 different things. And I'll ask my students this sometimes if they're struggling on this. Like, oh, what's J? Be like, Johnny. Johnny's what? Oh, Johnny's age. Okay, well, Johnny's age when? You're telling me that Johnny was an age of J in 1984. He was still J in 2005. Bad news for Johnny. Johnny aged in this time. Sometimes you'll see people set up little charts and say, well, here's Charlie and here's Johnny. The chart doesn't do anything. But if it helps you think about the variables, that's great. 1984, we can call Charlie C and Johnny J. 2005, sadly, both of these fine men have aged. Now in 2005, Charlie is no longer C. He's got to be C plus 21. Johnny is no longer J. He's J plus 21. And now you can turn this into nice, pretty little equations. 1984, Johnny was 5 times older as Charlie. This is still totally fine. But now in 2005, when Johnny's twice as old as Charlie, J plus 21 is going to be equal to 2 times C plus 21. Now this actually works. One mistake I see, sometimes people drop the parentheses. Problem. Most importantly, if you're not thoughtful about defining your variables on age questions, you're going to be in trouble. And once you do the math on this, 2 equations, 2 variables, it will spit out that Charlie was 7 years old in 1984. So again, age problems, are they super important on the GMAT? No, you don't see that many. You can open up the official guide. You might find a couple in there depending on the edition. Not a lot of them, but I think they do a really nice job of illustrating a principle that we see all the time on other things, on all sorts of just kind of generic word translation problems, and certainly on rates, which is where we're going to spend some of our time at the end here. If you're not being super, super careful about what does my variable mean? What does my variable mean? If you just start spitting out variables without thinking about what do they mean, that's where you get into trouble. Okay. Got 3 more questions, and I might make up 1 or 2 extras because we're going a little faster than I expected. Give you guys a couple minutes on this one. We've got some alcohol. Everybody deserves a drink. Take a couple minutes. All right, we're getting some nice variety here. Makes me happy. Means we picked something good. Um, and yep, practice enough Anders, you'll be all set. These are the kind of things where if you just do tons and tons of them, some wonderful questions up on GMAT Club. Our absolute resident genius on the quant section, Bunwell, is always there to answer your questions. So the good thing is that one of the things you guys hear me say about verbal all the time, don't do non-official questions if you can avoid it. It's really, really, really tough for the writers of questions. So people who work for test prep companies, myself included, really hard for us to copy the style of the actual test in a way that makes the questions worthwhile on verbal. Nice thing about quant, Bunwell writes questions all the time. All the companies out there, everybody writes these practice questions. Of course, some are better than others. But as long as you're doing word questions that aren't horrendously flawed, and very few of them are horrendously flawed, you're going to get practice in the things that really matter. If there's a chance to just translate, if you get a clean translation problem, great. Can't practice those enough, always going to be good for you. Practice in just thinking critically about variables. What's going to help you? What variable do you actually want here? And what are the ways you can kind of double check your work? What are the ways you can say, does my answer actually make sense? Both of those last two things are very much on display in this question. You got to be thoughtful about the variable. The more you practice actually engaging, thinking about what variable you really want, what's going to make sense, the better you'll get at it. In this case, what do I want? My question is, how much alcohol am I adding? That's my variable. I need to know how much pure alcohol am I adding. So we'll call the liters of pure alcohol added. Let's just call that A. Fine. So what's going on here? 80 liters at 15% alcohol. Well, at the very, very least, I can at least say how many liters of alcohol were in there to begin with. 15% of 80, that's going to get us 12 liters of alcohol and 68 liters of other stuff. Okay, fine. And now we want something that's going to be 20% alcohol. What does that mean? That 20%, what does that mean? Well, we're saying that the alcohol over the total is going to be 1 over 5, easy enough. So what do we know about the alcohol? Well, the alcohol started out at 12. We're going to add some alcohol to it. What's the total? 80 liters. No problem. You solve this, you're good. Problem is that's actually going to give you the wrong answer. Why? We're actually adding alcohol to the whole thing too. Stick that A down there. Now you can shake and bake, rearrange stuff. Oops, 5 times 12 plus A. And I think what happens here is we're about to get, let me actually do this out, 80 plus A equals 60 plus 5A, 20 equals 4A. A is going to get you 5. If you don't include that A right there, pretty sure you're going to get 4. So you're going to get A as your answer and not 5. One other thing I see here quite a bit, people will start picking numbers. Again, for the most part, I'm pretty anti-picking numbers. I can write a question where picking numbers is going to be the best path forward. Now, if we're honest with ourselves and we actually look through the official guides, look through the GMAT prep test, how often do you see questions where picking numbers is your best bet? How many questions above a 500 level do you see where that's the case? Very, very, very few. They're exceedingly rare. And sometimes on this, I'll see people just kind of start punching numbers in. That's going to be a real pain in the butt. I made this question fairly easy. All the answers are integers. If they're not, you're going to be there forever if you're back solving using your answer choices. Or if you just kind of start picking things or just try to start scaling this up, really inefficient way to do it. But again, if you just stick that variable in the right place, if you're thoughtful about this from the start and you say, what do I really want? Just A, just that amount of alcohol added, it ends up being pretty smooth, pretty quick. And easy enough to double check it as well. How long is it going to take me? 15 seconds. Spend the time. You can't afford not to spend the time making sure. All I have to do here is say, well, how much alcohol do I have total now? That's 12 plus 5. What's my total? I started with 80 liters in the cocktail. I add 5 to it. 17 over 85. Yep, that's 20%. And now I know I've got it. All right, we're going to finish up here. We've got 2 more questions, and depending on how time goes, I might make up a 3rd one. Let's talk about rates on our last couple. And again, we could go crazy on rates. We could spend a whole hour, maybe a couple hours on rate questions and all the different variations of them. What I really just want to get at here, the first one's going to be a little bit of a warm-up question. This is the kind of thing that if you've ever studied rate questions at all, you won't have any trouble with this. So this first one's a little bit of a warm-up. The next one gets into some of the stickier issues and rates that are going to apply to all sorts of word translations. So think of this next one as a quick little warm-up, just get your brain working again on combined rate questions. and then it'll get funkier on the last one. Give you guys a couple minutes. Okay, getting a little bit of writer answers again makes me happy. And thank you again, everybody who's going against the grain. Whenever you see the crowd picking something and you think you've got something different, and you've got the guts to tell us that you picked something else, makes me happy. Thank you so much, guys. I know there's plenty of other people who are usually quiet on these broadcasts and are like, oh, my answer's not right, feel shy about it. So thank you. Everybody goes against the grain. You make me happy. Thank you. All right. So rate questions. These are probably the, I don't know about hardest type of word problem. That's not quite right necessarily. It's one of the types of word translation problems that really is pretty purely algebraic in nature, that I think causes the most anxiety among GMAT test takers. When I talk to somebody who's already, let's say, taken a prep course, maybe taken the test a couple times, and they call us for tutoring, and yeah, my quant's not very good. I was like, oh, hey, what do you think you're bad at? Rates is often one of the first things out of their mouth. When it comes down to it, though, rates kind of work on just a very, very basic definition, and everything is just kind of recycling the algebra around this definition, that work is always equal to your rate times time. Don't think of that as a formula you need to memorize. That's just the definition of what a rate is or how much work you get done. And it's something you think about every day. So let's say that you, I don't know, you write reports for a living. And you write reports at a pace of 2 pages per hour, and somebody says, hey, I need you to write 20 pages today. Immediately, you realize that you need to work for about 10 hours. It's intuitive to you. Now, as soon as we start sticking funky stuff in here, the intuition goes away. This one isn't the worst of the worst. They get a lot better with practice. Anders, we'll see you on the quant forums, and we'll look forward to it. I promise you'll get better at these. Work equals rate times time. Whenever you have two things working together, you're always going to add their rates. So in this case, what's the rate for machine A? Well, machine A is producing one order, and it's doing it in 12 minutes. So what's A's rate? 1/12. What about B, one order, doing it in 10 minutes, 1/10. Together, well, they got to produce one order still. We're interested in their time together. And now all we have to do is add these rates. Two things working together, this is always going to be the case. So what do we get here? Not the nicest of numbers. Common denominator is going to be 60 there, I believe. 11 over 60. Great. Solve for t, so t must be 60 over 11. Simplify that. You're going to get 5 and 5/11ths. And that should give you an answer of C. Okay. So if you're new to rate questions, basic principle, whenever things are working together, add their rates up. Now let's make this harder. This should be the last one for today. Go ahead and take a shot at this, and I'll give you a hint. Be really thoughtful about your variable. If you do that, this will be really easy. I'll give you 2 minutes. Ooh, this is great. We're getting some variety, makes me happy. I know that on the live feed, we've got a little bit of a conversation about GMAT demons. Yeah, feel free to tell us more, guys. And Shovik, if you want to put up the link to the forum thread, if there's anything you guys that you'd like to see a video on, we have 2 more left in this series. Next one is going to be sentence correction next week, advanced sentence correction. We're going to get into some of the hardest of this stuff, inspired by somebody who had a 760. Who asked me for advice on how to get to a 780 through improving sentence correction. So tomorrow will be, or sorry, next Wednesday, we'll do the video kind of inspired by that conversation. And then the week after that, we'll do an equivalent one for data sufficiency, talking about how do you really, really push it. If you're already really good at data sufficiency, how do you get to that next level? So feel free, go ahead and log on to GMAT Club. We have a thread dedicated to this video series. If there's stuff you'd like to see in future videos, feel free to punch it in there. Definitely we'll take it into account for the next one. Okay, on to the algebra here on the rate question. Here's the key. Once again, the principle here that we kind of illustrated on the last one, kind of the idea behind what's going on with these rates. 2 things are working together. You're going to add their rates together. Always, no problem. Now, the tricky part is, and where I tend to see the mistakes, could be a couple things. Part of it might be that you're answering the wrong question here, but the more common general error I see is that the variables just don't make sense. So somebody will say, well, all right, I know that together Their combined rate is 1/6. That makes sense. So they do fill one tank in 6 hours working together. So I know that if I add the rate of A plus the rate of B, or in this case, I got lazy with that. We'll call this large and small. If I add the rate of the large plus the rate of the small, it's going to give me 1/6. Great. Okay. So now what? Now what do you call these things? And I see all kinds of goofy stuff here that can only hurt you. So one thing you could do here is you say, oh, well, this is L and this is S. Okay, cool. That's not too bad. But then what I always ask people when they say, oh yeah, I'm solving for S. What's S? What does S mean? And I'll get all kinds of answers there. It means the small pump. Small pump's what? The small pump that's not a number, that's not a value. S is the small pump. Cool story. Small pump's what? The small pump's work, its rate, its time, something else. Serial number, I don't know. So not a great choice of variable. You want that variable to be intuitive. So let's say that if this is a really complicated rate question, or if you find this rate question complicated, and let's say you go through a whole bunch of algebra and you solve for S, then you're like, ooh, I got S, cool. Right, but is S the thing you wanted? What was it? Then you got to go, crap, what was S? I forgot what S was. Was it rate? Was it work? Was it time? So what I want you to do here is I always want you to think about these as something that you're going to recognize later. Make those variables as intuitive as is humanly possible. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you effort. It's going to prevent errors. So instead of calling that small pump just S or calling the rate S, call the rate a rate, but then label it. Give it a little subscript. RS, there's the rate of the small pump. Great. What's the large pump? You could call that RL if you'd like. Now, fine, but even here, we're making our lives just a little bit harder. We can actually roll this piece of information in right away. The large pump is twice as fast as the small pump. What does that mean? It just means the rate is double. So now I can rewrite this as 2 times RS. And now we're cooking with gas. We're basically done. So 2RS plus RS, that's going to give us a 1/6. 3RS gives us a 1/6. Rate of S is 1/18. And easy enough. If you're not sure what to do with this, you can always just punch it right back into our definition of a rate. We want to know how long it's going to take the small pump to fill the tank. Its work is 1 tank. Its rate is 1/18. You're solving for time. Time's going to give you 18. And again, all of the different mistakes. So I think we had some answers of B. Well, yeah, those are the people who solved for the large pump, not the small pump. That could be a couple things. You didn't reread the question at the end. More likely for a lot of you guys, it was that you didn't define these variables carefully. If you turn these into just X or R or L, that's where you're going to get into trouble. Make sure those variables are as intuitive as are humanly possible. If you do that on the rate questions, I promise they'll get a whole lot better, especially if you practice a whole bunch. And again, you're going to find everything you want on GMAT Club, tons and tons and tons of practice problems of every flavor. Boonwell in particular is an absolute monster in the best possible way. You'll get all the repetition you need. Okay, we'll wrap this up for today. So just to summarize a little bit, again, 3 big principles here. GMAT gives you the opportunity to just translate nice and cleanly. Take the opportunity. Don't get cute. Don't go picking numbers. If they give you an opportunity where you can go word for word, turn that percent sign into over 100. Turn that of into a multiplication sign. Take the opportunity when they give it to you. Second, whenever you have an opportunity to check and see, does my answer actually make sense? Am I in the right ballpark? Think about that percent question where we had the answer choices that looked like this: 3%, 0.3%, 0.03%. You know exactly what the GMAT's trying to do to you, which is get you to stick that decimal in the wrong place or get you to stick the wrong number of zeros on. That's a red flag. Give yourself 10 seconds, 15 seconds, double check, ballpark it, see if there's anything you can do to make sure you've got that right. And again, always good. Invest in reading that question twice before you start. That question where we had Bruce earns 200% more than Chuck. If in your head you turn more than into of, you're in trouble. So yes, translate. Always watch your back. Third thing, the most important thing by far in word translations, by far, if you 100% master this, I promise everything else is going to be pretty easy. Pretty easy. Define your variables really, really carefully. It's not total. Every question is going to be different. How you define those variables is going to be different for every question. If you can get really thoughtful, really engaged in how do you make those variables easier on yourself, that's going to make a huge, huge difference. And that is the biggest key to word translations. It takes a lot of practice. If this is hard for you, be patient with yourself. Promise this will come with time. All right, guys, so we will be back. We have 2 more videos in this series. Back next week with advanced sentence correction. Week after that, advanced data sufficiency. I'm going to try to pick problems that are really going to hurt, really going to sting. Something to look forward to. I love being a sadist. That's why I became a teacher. So we'll see you guys next week, same time. Thank you so much for joining us. And now I'm going to stare blankly at the camera until the broadcast turns off. Thank you, everybody.